Alright, now we're going to create the roof. So the first thing I'm going to do to create the roof is use some construction lines. I know that the roof ridge is centered on this side of the house, so I'm going to draw two diagonals. Where they cross is where the ridge should end up being, so that's just being drawn as a construction line. I'm going to be able to get my height information from here, so I'm going to use the roof here as my approximate height. And again, I'm just going to use that node there on the vertical measuring line. And to get that height and figure out what height that would be over at where the ridge would be, I have to send that height to my vanishing point left. Where this line and the center of the ridge cross is representing where the ridge is. So if I use the object lines layer and draw lines from that intersection to the edge of the wall, then I'm defining the gable end wall. And I can delete that line there. Now to get the other two, or the other edge, I should say, we have to define the slopes in both directions. This slope has to be extended to the X line that we used to find our vanishing points from our picture plane. We can actually reuse it to help us draw things that are not parallel to the plane or the floor surface of what we're drawing this object on. So to find that point, I'm going to use the extend command, pick that X line as my extension object, and then send this slope to that line. I'm then going to put a point there as a construction line, and then I can trim this back to where it was. So this point up here will help us define the other side of the roof on that side. However, when we define the slope on the opposite side, we need to send this to in the opposite direction. So this needs to come down and go here. So I'm going to use the same tools, extend that down, whoops, extend that down to the X line, create another point, and then just trim it again. So now I have the two reference points that I need to help me define the roof, the rest of this roof as I lay it out. So I think I'm going to stop there and not draw the rest of the top of this roof, because we're actually going to draw the roof itself. So this is the gable end wall, we'd see that, but then the roof is going to hang over that. So I'm going to define the roof edges by using some construction lines again for my station point. So make sure you're on the construction layer, draw a line or array from the station point, whoops, through this time where the overhangs of the roof are. And I think more importantly, we're going to not worry so much about that for overhang that comes towards us. We're just going to define where those overhangs are for the other two, and this one will be defined by how we project our lines. So I'm going to draw a line from the intersection down and do the same thing on the other side. And those are defining the edge of the roof, where the roof edge becomes a soffit or fascia and comes down. Now I don't really know where this edge is in space, but I do know that if we're looking at the roof from the position we are, we're going to be able to see the underside of where the two rafters come together and stick out here, and I know that it's going to follow the ridge line of this roof. So I will draw as a construction line the ridge of the roof, as the ridge would be parallel with the wall, so it would follow the same vanishing point. But I want to extend that ridge line out to where the ridge would be in the plan. So what I need to do is find that ridge. I'm going to do that by drawing a line from nearest to that corner and on the projection line I used, and then just make sure that that's at that 30-degree angle and hitting the other side around the corner for where the roof would overhang, and then repeat that step and go all the way back here to where it intersects this corner as well. I'm going to have to use nearest again to get that to be in the right place. Okay, so that sets up what we need for a reference for the midpoint of this line. So I want to draw a line from the midpoint back, and then using that point there, I'm going to transfer that through the station point, and where it crosses the picture plane, I'm going to draw a line straight down. And what this does is shows me how far to extend this line to where we're going to see the bottom or rake overhang of this roof on this side. So to get the edge of that roof there, I'd go from the vanishing point that we created for that side slope. So from that vanishing point through this intersection, that's the underside of the rake overhang right there. And then I can use this vanishing point over here to extend to the corner of the building, and then extend that out to where the vanishing point came for the slope of the roof, because what that's doing is defining where the soffit rake overhang transitions and comes down straight depending on how big the fascia is. And then we cheated a little bit and we used the top of the roof here, but I'm going to imagine that there's a little bit more height here. That's where the actual top of the ridge of the roof is. And so I'm just going to make that up here. I'm just going to draw a point from this intersection and just decide I want to go up. I'm going to eyeball it and say that I want it to be about 6 inches. And so I would draw a line from that vanishing point down there and go through that new point that I just created. And you see what that does is shows me where the soffit would be. So if I trim that, maybe you'll see it a little bit better if I do that. If I trim that, this would be what it would look like if it was just a straight soffit, a fascia, no soffit. But I want to create a soffit. So to create a soffit, I'm going to draw a line down from here where this edge of the building intersects with the slope of the roof. And then I'm going to draw a line from this point here. Let's use the ray command, so then I can see where it's going to land, right through the corner. And that's kind of defining what my soffit height is going to be. So there's my soffit height there, and this is going to be where this line gets trimmed right here. And then I'm going to use that same reference for the other corner. So I'm not going to delete this line yet, but what's going to happen, why don't I go ahead and draw right on top of it so we can see it, is this is the front face of the roof as it overhangs. We'd see that ridge line right there, and there's the front face of it. Now we'd see the soffit disappearing behind here, so I'm going to use the ray command to draw a soffit from that corner and that corner, and then we'll just trim those things. Erase that. And then we would also see that edge in there too, and that's creating the underside of that roof overhang that we can see from that side. So hopefully that makes sense. We're going to repeat that process, but we're going to have to find where all those things are on the other side of the house. And it looks like I might have erased a crucial point here, and it looks no, I've got that one in there. There it is. But I do want this edge too, it looks like. So I'm going to draw this line in from here. That's going to be where the edge of the roof is. Make that a construction layer. So that's the front edge of the roof that we don't know where it's going to be yet, but we have some inkling, and we're going to use the information we got from defining that shape. This edge, obviously, this soffit should be the same height on the other side, so that's defining where the corner of the roof is right there. To get the height of this corner on this side, I can also run that through the vanishing point. Let's switch to a construction layer. Use the ray command, and I want to go through this corner, And I've now defined, let's switch to the object layer so we can see it, the height of the soffit on this side where we'd be able to see it. So now to get the rest of this roof on this side, I should be able to go from the vanishing point here through that corner, and then the vanishing point again through this ridge. And let's just see where that lands here. And that's landing right on the same point that we defined where the soffit overhang is. So we to find out where to end this, or how far this is returning, I need to send this line forward to this edge. So I'll use extend. And then I need to draw a line straight down from there. So let's trim that, and hopefully you'll be able to see what I've done, and trim this. And we wouldn't be able to see any of these lines in the back anymore, so I'm going to get rid of those and get rid of this line. And we'll clean this up as well. And then you can see that if I just draw this line across here, that is representing the front face of this same fascia board on the rake side. Looks a little bit larger because it's a little bit closer to us. And now to define the this fascia on this side, we use the line command from the corners we've defined. And we'd also want to draw a line from this edge back so that we can see how much of our soffit is overhung. Now this is where this line comes into play. This line, remember, is defining the edge of the roof as it appears from the station point. That's where the edge of the roof is. So all of this soffit information stops there. And our the end of our soffit can be figured out by drawing a line from our vanishing point on the opposite side through this corner, and then we would trim it where those two lines intersect. So see that's defining how much it's overhanging on the back side of the building. Now to get rid of some of the lines we can't see anymore, we're almost there. We just need to define the ridge of the roof. We do that by going through the vanishing point on the right. And then we now need to define the other side of the slope, which that slope is the same vanishing point as this one. So we should go from the vanishing point to this corner. And then trim. And then we've defined the roof lines for the building.